16-inch guns roared like mountains collapsing. The flash from the barrels lit the ocean as if a new sun had been, born only to die again in the next second. The recoil shook the battleship's bones. Shells the size of automobiles screamed. Across the water in arcs too terrifying to imagine, they tore through the dark and slammed into Yamashiro with earth-shattering force. The Japanese battleship rocked violently. Steel plates buckled. Fire erupted from her decks. Men were thrown from their feet. But still she pressed on. Tennessee joined the barrage. California followed. Maryland and Mississippi unleashed their fury. The American line of battleships fired with radar-guided precision, each salvo striking with inescapable accuracy. Yamashiro fired back. Her guns flashed defiantly, sending shells toward the American line in a desperate final cry. But the distance was too far, the darkness too great, the radar too perfect. Most shells splashed harmlessly into the sea. A few landed close. None could change the outcome. The destroyers that had survived the earlier gauntlet attempted to shield Yamashiro, racing forward through curtains of fire, trying to draw torpedoes and shells away from their flagship. One by one, they were obliterated. Firestorms consumed them. Explosions split their hulls in two. Men were thrown into the sea, screaming into the cold water as burning oil floated around them like drifting stars. Yamashiro burned. She bled smoke. Her engines screamed under stress. Her decks glowed with spreading fire. But still she fought. The Americans respected her defiance, not in words, not in praise, but in the unspoken, understanding that an enemy, willing to die without hesitation, deserved silence, not mockery. At 4:09 a.m., Yamashiro took multiple torpedo strikes. The sea rushed into her body. Her list became impossible to correct. Her remaining guns continued firing, but the shots grew sporadic, weaker, slower. Her spirit remained fierce, but her body was dying. At 4:19 a.m., one of the largest battleships ever built by Japan rolled onto her side. She groaned like a wounded creature of steel. Water swallowed her decks, then her towers, then her nameplate. Then she was gone. The sea closed over her like a curtain pulled across a stage. The flames vanished. The smoke drifted away, and the night swallowed its dead without a sound. Fuso had already been lost. Her crew scattered across the water, her wreckage marked only by burning patches of oil. The survivors floated in silence, watching the black smoke drift toward the mountains. Some called for help. Some prayed. Some stared into the sky, waiting for dawn that would never come. The Americans continued searching the waters after the firing ceased. They rescued a few survivors, not many, not enough to form a full crew, just enough to remind everyone that even the most violent battles leave behind human beings clinging to life. By sunrise, the sea looked strangely calm again. A calm that felt undeserved. A calm that felt hollow. A calm built on the bones of hundreds of sailors now sleeping beneath the waves. The American battleships turned slowly northward. They had won. They had ended the last battleship versus battleship engagement in world history. But the victory felt like a shadow. The war was still raging. Kurita's center force still threatened. The American escort carriers at Samar, the Japanese air. Attacks were still relentless, and the push toward Manila and then toward Japan itself still awaited them. The sailors aboard the American ships stood at the rails and watched the morning. Light spread across the water. They knew they had witnessed something that would never happen. Again, a full battleship line, unleashing its power against an opposing battleship line in the dark of night. The world was changing. Radar had made old tactics meaningless. Aircraft carriers now ruled the sea. Battleships were no longer the kings of war, but relics moving through a storm that no longer belonged to them. Surigao Strait was not just a battle. It was the end of an era. The Japanese Empire had spent its last battleships in a desperate attempt to change the course of the war. But the tide had already turned. Surigao simply exposed the truth that had been growing for years. Japan could no longer match American industrial might, American technology, or the relentless advance of the American fleet. The night ended. The smoke drifted away. The sea resumed its eternal rhythm. But under those waves, two battleships lay silent. Their guns forever still, their decks forever dark, their crews forever entombed in steel. The final battle of Surigao Strait had ended. The Pacific War marched on, and history moved with it, carrying the echoes of that night across decades, across oceans, across generations. The last battleship duel in human history was over, and the world would never see another like it.